So, hey everyone, I'm extremely happy today because for this masterclass, we were able to collaborate with the amazing Hector Quiroga. He's an immigration attorney in the United States. And I believe that the information that you're going to receive in this masterclass is one of the most important ones for you as an immigrant. So thank you, Hector, for being with us today.
Thank you for the invite. Welcome, and thanks for everybody who is listening to this.
Thank
kind
you.
Of introduction for me, but
Thank you. So before we just start jumping into this conversation, I just want to explain a bit more why we decided to talk about this topic. I believe the internet is a very, very good tool for us. Whenever we have a question, we can go Google it and we find a full list of possible answers. But also we have social media and we have YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc. And whenever we try to find information, sometimes it's very confusing. And I must say that, for example, for immigrants, there are a lot of Facebook groups, which are public groups, where you can go and ask a question and like 100 people are going to answer. And you cannot even figure out if these people is being right with the information that they are providing, or they are willing to extort you in a certain way. So I believe the topic that we are touching today is very important for us because we also have this idea that we only need a lawyer when we want to migrate to another country, but this is not. So again, thanks for being with us, and let's start with this conversation.
All right. So a couple of things. I mean, I think that seeking information is something that everybody should do. Even when you want to talk to a lawyer, you want to know a little bit about the process, so you know you're being told the truth. But you kind of stress the issue, which is there's almost too much information out there, where the information is in fact at equal pose. It's just kind of like you don't know who to believe or how to believe, or who is right or who's not right, and that's that. There are other, as far as the United States, yes, there is other people who are non-lawyers who can help. But the question goes, how important is this to you? When you go to a surgeon, you may look at the disease, you might look at what this is going to do, the symptoms, perhaps the pain level, and you may even talk to nurses, or you may even talk to anybody in the medical field. But when you go to surgery, are you going to put your hands in somebody's hands that is not qualified? And are they at least insured, and do they have at least a license? And so I don't know, sometimes when we come to the legal field, this tends to be set aside. Lawyers are trained on this, and I think lawyers need to, and they need to be held to that standard. And I think that's that. When you work with a lawyer who is completely focused in one thing, then that might be the right type of professional for you. Now, there are certain things that are not that big of a deal, right? I'm just going to ask for a visa to go visit, and whether I go or I don't go, it's not that big of a deal. We're just going to ask for the visa, and if they give it to me, I'll go visit. If not, then I don't, right? So then that may not necessarily be a situation where you need a lawyer to help you through that process. But if you're looking for your residency card, where you're talking about your ability to work, your ability to travel, your ability to become a citizen, by all means, I think you need to put that in the best hands possible. So it's just kind of like, it kind of depends on the situation, but I think most of the time a lawyer is in fact needed.
Yeah, definitely. I believe what you're saying is a very good point. Sometimes we are super confused about when to reach out to an immigration lawyer or even a consultant. And there's other people announcing themselves like coaching, something like that, who they aren't really studying the law or the processes for each immigrant. They are just sharing their experiences and filling up forms for them. So, for example, is there a way to identify the differences between a consultant and a lawyer?
Right. So you got to be very careful because a coach, right? If I tell you file Form A versus Form B, that's legal advice. So that may be the unlawful practice of law, right? Because what do lawyers do? Lawyers give advice and legal advice. And so follow this process instead of that process. That's legal advice. And so there are, however, people who can prepare forms. And so this is where there's a lot of differences, right? So if I come to you and I say to you, will you help me draft this form, and you draft it, there's no problem with that. The problem is when you tell me, but that's not the form you should file. You should file this other form, or you should add to this form. Then you start doubling on, that's now legal advice. So a form preparer is not a lawyer, and they can't do that. And that can bring them a lot of times. And there's been a lot of fraud in a lot of places. And truthfully, what happens is they get overconfident. They draft one form and the case gets approved. They draft another form, the case gets approved. They draft the next, and they go, this is easy. I'm just drafting forms. But they forget that there is massive amounts of case law that one day is going to prejudice someone, right? So that's kind of the difference. And I really think the cost of not using the proper professional is a lot higher than saving, a few $1,000 or a few $100 or whatever it may be to actually talk to a qualified attorney. So I do think it's a big thing. Doesn't mean that these people are bad necessarily. It's just I think they get overconfident very quickly, right? And that's that.
So what are the qualifications are we looking for when we are hiring a professional? What would we see in there? I know that, for example, you're more you're used to the US process, but for example, in more general information, what do we have to check?
Right. So, I speak of the United States based people. Sure. That's just because what I kind of speak of, what I'm a professional of, because each country has different things, but it's typically different. So, lawyer, you want a lawyer, so the lawyer has to be part of the bar association. Every state has a bar association that licenses lawyers to practice law. So you can go to in my case, the Washington State lawyer or the Nevada State lawyer, and then you can type the lawyer's name, and you'll see this person is in fact licensed. If they had any problems, if they are insured, so it's like a medical board. You can check on your doctor and see, does this doctor have a good record, right? And look to see if you're comfortable with that record, right? That's one thing. The other thing too, I think is important is these people who are actually focused in one practice area. And I just remember when it comes to immigration, there is no specialty in law. It's just a focus. What are you focused on these things? So lawyers, once they get the law degree, they can work in any area. They can do bankruptcy, family, criminal law, whatever they are vested with that license. They can do as they please. However, would you hand your eye surgery to a doctor who's just practiced on food surgeries, right? You're in the wrong kind of profession. So you want to see that there is a focus in that area, right? This is a lot less, and this is one of the problems that we have with non-lawyers. There are some licenses in certain states for certain professionals, but they're all over the place. It's difficult to put down. One of the ones that I think is that I respect a lot is an individual who's part of the Board of Immigration Appeals, somebody who's gone through a lot of training, who has actually been done, and is what we call BIA accredited, Board of Immigration Appeals accredited. If that's the case, if the person has gone through that, they have a lot of training and they have resources, and when they get stuck, they can go ask a lawyer, and a lawyer can tell them what to do, what not to do. That is one of the ones that I check, and there's a lot of people who are very familiar with this process who may know something that the lawyer doesn't know. I mean, there's sometimes where that happens, but typically comes from people with like a BIA accreditation or something to that effect. But if you're looking into, you check your lawyer that they have a license, and then number two, with the bar association, and number two, that they focus on that area of practice.
Yeah, and I believe that's very important to say, because when you go to these kind of boards, I believe there's a directory with the names and even, for example, a code or a number which identifies this person. So it's not only going to this board or that this person has the little logo in their website and you will trust that. Actually, you go to this board or association or affiliation and check all the information possible for these people to see if they are actually professionals.
And I think more importantly, more than anything else, I mean, that this is basic one-on-one stuff, but I think the next step would be like, who are their clients? How many successful adjudications have been. Is there anybody I can talk to? And some of it with lawyers, there are certain confidentiality rules that don't allow us to disclose certain things, right? But there are certain clients that are more than happy to say, I'll be glad to give a waiver of that confidence, and I'll be glad to, because you did such a good job for me, I'll be more than happy to give a referral or to give you a testimonial or something like that, and ensure that those are legitimate. And I think it's like hiring somebody for your business. You want to call the references. I mean, you have to call the reference, and sometimes that will tell you a lot more than a website somewhere saying the person is licensed, right? So I think that's very, very important. And this is true even for, professional or people who say, yeah, this person did help me or didn't help me, right? Or it didn't really work out the way it was, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. When I did my my process to migrate to Canada, I did it with a lawyer, and exactly the same thing that you're saying. It was referred to me, and this is why I trust the person and trust the firm, and I was like 100% sure that even if I was in Mexico, I was doing all my process with a professional, even if I never saw her in my life.
Right.
So, well, we're talking about doing a permanent residency process, but what else can an immigration attorney do for us?
Well, immigration itself is a very large subject, right? You can divide it between people, and you can divide it with cargo or intellectual property, right? You can say the ideas that are flowing into the country, the shipments that are flowing into the country. There is immigration. How we get a shipment of shoes through customs, right? An immigration lawyer and a customer market lawyer can help you with this, but there are different areas. So that's what I'm saying. If you don't focus in immigration, even when you go to an immigration lawyer, what kind of immigration, right? Because we have also humanitarian issues. We got asylum, we got EU visas, we got DACA's parole in place, we got all sorts of things that lawyers, right? There's family lawyers, which is like, petition for a fiance, a petition for a spouse, right? Then there is the deportation attorneys who, we call it litigators who, file and fight a deportation, right? So maybe the immigrant's rights are being taken away, or are in detention, and we need to fight for that, right? There is appellate lawyers in immigration. So now, when things don't go in, we got to go to the Board of Immigration Appeals, and then we need to go into perhaps even federal court and Supreme Court, right? So these are things that only lawyers can help you with. Again, to ask a non-lawyer to figure out an appellate to Court of Appeals or that type of thing, they can't, because only lawyers can argue before these courts. And so it really depends on what you are on this. And so for me, I work with a lot of humanitarian and family type of cases. I don't deal with any cargo or anything like that. And we have a few in the firm, we have a fairly large firm at this point, have litigation lawyers who help us on the appellate and the fighting of detainees. So.
Yeah. So, for example, in case of refugee or deportation, should we immediately try to look for someone specialized in this topic, or any immigration attorney could be of help?
I think we careful with the specialization. Lawyers can't really use that word. So you're not going to find a lawyer. Even if you find a lawyer that specializes in something, you got to be really careful. Because some states might allow it, but most of the states do not allow for this, right? So you want to learn that you have a lawyer that focuses on immigration. So the minute that you see family law, bankruptcy, personal injury, you should already be getting a little suspicious, or a little, how good is this going to be? And then from there, you want to say, okay, well, how many deportation cases, or how many asylum cases, how many refugee cases have you taken? And that type of thing. And refugee is an interesting word, because refugee is the person who is outside and we want to bring into the country. And typically, nonprofits like World Relief and the Catholic Church and different big things is kind of how who take that type of stuff. Typically, we deal with asylum, which is a person who is already in the country looking for the same thing. So you want to look at a lawyer who has handled asylum and is able to go before either the court or USCIS or whichever might be.
Yeah. How was your process as an immigrant? Like, were you, when you did all your process as a person, as Hector, did you do it via a lawyer?
No, I came when I was 17 years old, and I did over through my mom and my dad, my stepdad. They married, and he's a New York citizen, and he petitioned for me, and that was a far faster process than doing it through other processes available to me, or perhaps available to me at the time. So that's how I did it. Yeah.
And why did you choose to become an immigration lawyer?
I was born to be a lawyer. I knew it the minute I can remember. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. But when do I want to become an immigration lawyer? And that's a good question, because for a while I was kind of like, okay, so I have my law degree, and what do I do, right? And I didn't quite figure it out for a period of time. But then when I did, it just made so much sense. It made some sense, and there's just a lot of things about it. I fell in love with this process through my own experience of having a green card, having a work permit, having a visa, going to school with a green card, learning English. It's just my story was very immigrant based, and then yeah, it was very meaningful to me to become a citizen of the United States, and to the point I was like, I really like that. And the main thing is, I also really like the fact that this is happy law, right? Like at the end of the day, at least there's a possibility of standing next to somebody with a smiley face and saying, hey, we did it, right? You are a resident, you got the keys of the country now, you can, right? With a lot of law, you don't get that. People sue each other, they fight each other, there's a lot of destruction and battle, and at the end of the day, I don't see that. And so I think that immigration gives me a certain amount of satisfaction that no other area of practice can, and so that helped.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking you these questions is because one of the important elements that I find very useful when we are selecting an immigration lawyer, is to check what's his motto, what's moving him to do business, why is he in business? And I've been following you, and I see all the advice and all the contact that you have with your community, and it's awesome because it shows that not only, of course, you want to get the clients right, but it's not only about that. It's about providing a good service and making them feel that they are in good hands. So you are trustworthy and resourceable as well. So I believe these two elements are very important in a professional when they are like, we are extremely in disadvantage because we don't know the process, we don't know the law, sometimes we don't know the language. So having someone at our side like you, for example, is very reassuring.
Thank you. And so, and I think that's right. You want to get behind the why, and this is true for any profession, right, or anything, right? It's just we can get persuaded with degrees and impressive credentials, but really why, right? Is this person actually, I don't know if to say happy, because that's kind of a strong word on this, but is this person in the right area, right? Because if they hate themselves, they don't want to help, they're so then this is how they're going to treat your file, right? So you do, and I'm glad that you received these, because I don't think actually lawyers know this. A lot of other lawyers I talk to, they we fight. That's the motto, right? But it's always so cliche now, right? We fight for the clients, we care. But they don't tell us why they care, right? I care because I've been there. I know what it is to lose a work permit. Like, you're done. You can't work. You can't. You don't, and you have a choice. Do I break the law and work undocumented, right? And what consequences that's going to bring me, or do I starve, right? Because then I don't have a way to. So it puts you in this very difficult position, and then if your whole life depends on this document, right? And so like when I've been there, when I know what it is to lose a work permit, right, and having that fear day to day, it just makes me a much better advocate, I believe, because I can talk to the person and not
To
the
the
legality.
file.
Yeah, to the file. And so when and I always said, if a lawyer can explain the process clearly and in a way that you understand it, I'm not sure that lawyer is the good lawyer, or a good lawyer, at least for you, because if what they do is they come and lecture to you and tell you, look at how much knowledge I have. I'm going to file a motion, and then I'm going to move for summary judgment, and then I might even do a motion on limine, and then before that, I'm going to file a 12b6. Right when the beginning of the case, I'm going to file a 12b6 motion to start with. Then if that doesn't work, we'll go to the appellate level. Clients usually do this, but they might be going, what in the world are you talking about, right? You didn't come here to me to lecture you about immigration law or process law. What you want to know is this going to work out? Am I going to feel better? Is this, you know what I mean? But only a person who understands why they're doing it are able to get to that point.
Yeah, and I believe this would be another topic for another masterclass, but it would be great to talk about what questions should we be doing to our lawyer once we are deciding to look for a lawyer. Because we have to arrive prepared as well. We cannot just arrive and saying my name and after expect for the lawyer to actually guess everything what I need. So we should be prepared as well, because it will help the process and it will help the lawyer as well, going through all the things that he has to do in order to succeed.
Do you want me to answer those questions, or you said you
Oh
want to
well,
leave?
if you can answer right away, so it would be great.
Well, I mean, in short, yes. It happens to me. Many consultations, and sometimes clients aren't necessarily prepared, and I think there are certain questions they might not know. So there's a couple of things you do want to know. The first meeting is not a meeting on which you're going to start a case. We really need to differentiate those two. The first meeting really is to understand each other. Am I, as a lawyer, going to take your case? Because I decline cases. I cannot fulfill your expectations. I can't not, and since I can't fulfill your expectations, I don't think we should work together, right? There is also the opposite, right? Where the client goes, you look like a nice man, right? But I don't think we can work together. And that's perfectly fine. And that's a very good conclusion, because I much rather have that day one than have, day 50, right? It's important we do that. And so what happens is sometimes, what happens in the legal industry is somebody comes in and it's like a deposition. I mean, we're just asking, I'm bombarding questions. We in my office, we have divided that. It's more about what are your goals, what are you going to do, is this going to be? And, a lot of it surrounds about time frame, right? So for example, if through this process, getting a work permit is going to take maybe 120 days to 180 days. We don't have control of much of it. I can just give you a guideline of what it is, because the government ultimately is the entity has control over these things. If there's a government shutdown, I mean, there's a lot of things that affect these timelines, but I can give you a guideline. If a person tells me, listen, I have to have this permit 90 days, period, paragraph, cannot be 291 days because I'm going to lose my job, this is a case I'm probably going to decline, because I just know that I can't fulfill your expectation. But, maybe you can go to another professional, get a second opinion. I just not going to embark on that because I know your expectation. It's not a question of whether or not I'm going to get the work permit. I know we're going to get it, but I'm just not going to be able to do it in 90 days, right? And it could be not just because of the government, it could be because the firm is so busy at the moment that we just can't take that type of case with that type of pressure. Now, there are people who might say, I'm willing to wait 6 months, 8 months, doesn't matter. Well, then maybe, so there's a way. If the person decides to engage our services, that's when we really do say, okay, when were you born? When did you come to the country? And that becomes a fact-finding meeting, right? It's a completely different objective at that moment in time. But I need to make sure that the expectations are proper, and that's something that both expectations are for time, money, right? How much the cost is going to be, how much the cost for the government is going to be, how much the fees of the firm are going to be, how much is this process really going to cost you? And the person may say, maybe too expensive, right? So we can then it's something we need to know. Then we can work together, because I'm not gonna cut corners to save you $400 or $500, right? And then not deliver to you a work permit or even your residency card that may be now delayed for a year. Like, look at the value that you just lost, right? So this is a conversation that we have, and then the person. So it's two things. But what questions should you have? I mean, the client should be asking, why are you an immigration lawyer? That would be a good question to ask. And why do you say break? Why do you fix brakes, right? Because I want to feed my family. Okay, hopefully there's something more, right? Why do you do this? Have you handled these matters before? For about how many, right? Do you feel comfortable with the case, right? So people sometimes ask me, can you guarantee this, right? And the answer is no, absolutely not. Even if I know by law 1 + 1 = 2, and this is, I can't, ethically lawyers can't guarantee, but we can say other things like, this is a comfortable case. Oh, this is risky. This is a 50-50, right? Or this is a 10% chance on this, right? But you want to be knowing so the expectations are set properly, right? And so those are the type of questions I think generally they need to ask. Have you handled this type of visa before? And yes, and how did it go, right?
Definitely. And I believe most of these questions that you just listed are related to ethics, of professional ethics. So I believe we have to make people remember that at the end, we are hiring someone. If we were in a corporate world, we would be the HR department, and we are interviewing the next employee who is going to bring us to success. So we have to be very careful on this.
And I like the analogy because when I have interviewed for jobs, the interview is a two-way process. I'm also interviewing if this is the place I want to work for. This is the place, and that's what I'm saying. This is when we decide to decline cases when we believe we cannot really meet those expectations, right? Like, we're just not going to be able to meet the expectation. I want to set you I'm setting the whole thing for failure. So I much rather tell you no. So it goes both ways, and that's that.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another thing, because you brought everything, all the papers and everything is in order. Like, at the end, it's not the responsibility of the lawyer that you're going to be accepted or your process is going to end up being successful. There's a lot of other things involved in the government and inside the country that you're living in that might be blocking something. So if there's something blocking, this is not 100% responsibility of your lawyer. Can you depend on that, please?
Right. Exactly. I mean, so there are certain things there are the cases where there's a change in circumstances in the middle of the case, right? Or somebody gets a DUI in the middle of it. So we took representation. This is how we know this case is going to be. We feel comfortable with it, but now there's a DUI in the middle, or there is an allegation of some kind. Is going to impact it. That's beyond the lawyer's possibility. But there is also changes of law. The law could change in the middle of the case, right? We've seen this happen in our office a few times, and sometimes actually has to our benefit. Actually, we thought we had to do all of this, and turns out that now there's a direct way to do it. So do understand that it's not. This is why I battle a little bit with sometimes consultants and coaches, right? Because they're not necessarily trained on those changes, right? How to interpret case law, right? And how to interpret a change and it. Unfortunately, in America, it's like, okay, the government says we're used to do A, but now we're going to do B. We assume that that's a very clear instruction of how the new thing is. Unfortunately, it's not. It's interpretation of case law that we think we can do this now instead. And so it takes lawyers like us to start trying certain things and arguing certain things um, to fall in the best light of our client. And sometimes we're unsuccessful with these things. And so I think that the main thing is you are engaging in a relationship more than you're engaging in a product. And the thing is, it's so easy to say, I'm just doing your forms. So you give me money and here are your forms, bye-bye. Oh, I'm just going to help you with your green card. So you give me money for the green card and then the government gives you your green card, bye-bye. Well, that's not what we do. Because what we do is really that relationship, that service through the entire process. And once we take representation, things might go sideways. And we do tell the client, look, may go this way, may go this way, or it may be something completely unexpected. But because we are in that constant contact, we are trying to advance the client to the client's objective as painless as we can, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's pain, but our job is not to eradicate pain. If we can, we will. But the main thing is to reduce it as much as we can. And I think the industry sometimes sees that, right? You go to a consultant or you go to somebody's like, well, here's the money for the visa. What is my visa? Well, you know, again, you're not buying a visa. So that would be selling you a visa, and that's highly illegal, right? You are really, the value is what you're paying for is that relationship to get you from point A to point B, you know, as easy as possible.
Yeah, totally. So I just want to go back very quick to the beginning of this conversation. And I was talking about Facebook groups. I'm personally active in some of those immigrants groups on Facebook.
Right.
And I just want to underline the people, like every time that I see these kind of questions, I have a heart attack. Because there's people asking, how can I stay here longer without having to pass through the process? Or how can I, like, if I stay here as a student, can I be a resident? And all these questions that are trying, kind of avoiding going through the process. So having you just in front of us, what would be your biggest advice to all these people who are trying to find a solution, turning around the process?
Right. I think goes back to, you know, I understand that having a consultation with an attorney could be expensive, or with an attorney's office, but they will give you the truth. Hopefully, right? If you go to, you do your, but they will tell you, there's no way you can do it. There is a way you can do it. It'll be this way, this way. Turning into public free information, right? Is number one, what is your time worth? You're probably going to be this month on end to try to figure it out. And then how do you rely on somebody's answer that is not there, right? At least with an attorney, you know, hey, you told me this and it wasn't that. So you can really hold them to it, right? You can really hold them to it. So this is why lawyers have insurance, because then, you know, people rely on advice, right? You can't do that with a Facebook group. You can't do that with people like that. So I honestly think that now, can people find information on their own and figure it out on their own? You're telling an immigrant who figured it out on his own. I learned English on my own. Well, I went to school, but I financed my school on my own. I had to learn how to change my own alternator because I couldn't pay to have the alternator. So if anybody, I figured out marketing on my own when I started my firm because I couldn't hire somebody to. The can-do attitude of the immigrant, it's kind of what sometimes gets us, right?
Yeah.
Because we say, hey, I can figure that out. Yes, you can. The question is, you know, are you going to spend 40, 80, 100 hours of your time, right, when you can spend it on one and then use 80 hours to do something of a lot more value, something that you really do enjoy, right? So I do think that going to that professional and saying, hey, and, you know, even getting a second opinion sometimes from a different professional. I mean, you have to pay twice. Okay, so you spend 2 hours instead of one, double the cost, but you can really see and go, okay, the professionals agree that this is it. I just kind of leave it at that. But I think that's the best advice I can. I'm not saying you shouldn't look, you should check, you should have some knowledge. So when somebody tells you, you know, it's heart surgery and we're going to cut you from the back, you go, that sounds odd, right? There's enough knowledge that we have to know we're not not being told lies, right? But not enough for us to say, let me undertake this whole thing on my own.
Yeah, yeah. Hector, this conversation has been amazing, and I'm super happy that you will be there in the meet and greet on the 25th. So for everybody else who has other questions or want to meet Hector in person, you can just join us on the 25th and ask us more things. Thank you so much for this. I believe the most important thing to say of this conversation is that we can rely on someone who is a professional, who has been recommended, who has the right qualifications, who's a member of a board of something in the country that he is actually executing his job. And well, you will have Hector as well in the board of experts in the member zone. So you can reach out to him. We are going to leave all his information and details. Thank you again, and see you next time.
See you next time. Thanks, Jana.
Thank you.